Hey everyone, Mr. Messia here. Recently, this laptop challenge went live, and for those who don't know, this is a very quick rundown. You're trying to bring your time as close as you can to the world record time when the event ends, which is usually in a span of 2 weeks. That way, when the event ends, your laptop gets counted, and depending on if you fall on the bronze, silver, or gold medal times, you'll be able to get a credit prize. Now, if you take a quick glance at the thumbnail of the event, you'll see it's Spa-Francorchamps with Group 3 cars. But if you take a closer look, it's actually only 3 cars that are allowed for this event. Those 3 cars are the Honda NSX GT500, the Toyota Supra GT500, and the Nissan GTR GT500. And if you take a quick look at the leaderboards, it's full of Honda NSX, as this is the best car for this event. Now, recently I made a video where I tested all 33 Group 4 cars at Lago Major, and that video did really well, so I decided to carry on with the idea where I'm going to take all 3 cars to Spa, and I want to see if I can do the following things. Can I get a gold time, which was a 220.9 as of the recording of the video, go under 220.0, and go under a 219.5. If a car can do all 3 things, then I think it is a viable car to use for this lap time challenge. So without further ado, let's get this started. Alright, so a couple quick pointers. 1, the cars are rented, but they are the same as if I were to have purchased the cars. The only thing is I cannot put a livery on them. 2, the only assist I have on is ABS, which is a default. And 3, all I care about is if the cars have enough pace to meet my requirements. So I am not comparing the cars with each other for this video. Now, the Honda NSX, I'm gonna say that this was actually not the easiest car of the bunch to drive, but it was not the hardest one to drive. I want to say this car was middle of the road for me, as there were some times where I was just confused about how this car is behaving, because there are parts where I get on the throttle pretty aggressively and the car is like, okay, I'll do what you want to do, and we'll go flying down our Rouge Radion and a Camel Straight and gain 1 or 2 tenths there. And then there were other times where I do something similar and the car is like, no, screw you, I'm gonna go ahead and spin out, and yeah, I spin out. There were also times where if I do one thing, the car will slow down and turn in, and then I come back to it later, and then suddenly the car decides it wants to understeer like crazy. I don't know if it's just me, but that's been my experience with this car. And here's the thing, if I were to get a section nailed down with this car, it feels great. It feels really rewarding. But then there were other times where the car just ends up being really frustrating to drive because it doesn't do what I want it to do. For example, right here, every now and then I get this section nailed down, and it just feels great because the car is rotating just enough and I'm able to get a decent exit, and it just feels great because you know right away, oh yeah, I'm gaining time right here. But then there's turns like this one right here where you turn in and the car just refuses to turn and you end up going off track, and that part was especially frustrating. Yeah, I like to think that this car has a mind of its own. Blanchimont is really dangerous for me because I know I can take a flat out, but if I do it wrong, I will go off the track. So I do a little lift so I can make sure I can actually survive that turn. And then exiting the final boss of chicane, just gotta be nice and careful getting back on the throttle, and the car will be happy to finish the lap for you. But yeah, I was able to get a 217.8, and you have no idea how happy I was because I spent so many hours trying to get that 217. I was stuck at a 218.0 for quite some time. But anyways, so that car was basically the demonstration car. Now we're going to go over to the Toyota Supra GT500, where this car was actually the easiest for me to drive. I still need a little bit of time to get used to how this car drove because I spent so much time with the Honda NSX, but I pretty quickly got used to this car. I feel like I was able to be a little more aggressive getting back on the throttle compared to the Honda NSX. Average riding on it is really easy flat out, but I think my main issue with this car is its straight line acceleration and speed is not the best. It did feel pretty sluggish, so I'm just sitting here like, okay, can you go faster? Can you go faster? And it's just not going faster. However, its handling, in my opinion, I think it's pretty decent, and I was able to have a bit of a better time trying to navigate through these turns and just trying to get the lap time that I want. And just be nice and careful getting back on the throttle because this car does have a turbo, so I'm trying not to have the turbo kick me in the face and spin me out. And yeah, this car did feel pretty enjoyable to drive, so I will give it some kudos points for that. You're just trying to be nice and careful with your Puhan, try not to understeer too much. I'll probably even say that this is a bit more of a handling car, at least in this context. Just trying to be a bit careful getting back on the throttle, and also trying to get used to the gearing because I think the gearing feels a bit shorter with this car compared to the Honda. So again, I'm still just trying to get used to this car. And that little lift off our throttle right there, you can see right there, I was able to gain quite a bit of time on my goes. So just that little lift, let the car rotate, get back on the throttle, and bam, gained at least 0.2 of a second right there. And here, yeah, you just got to be really careful there. I think I got a bad turn in, which is why I understeered there. Luckily, I lifted off our throttle, so I was able to survive the turn. And here, just got to be nice and careful getting back on the throttle. And luckily, this car meets all three of my expectations and is able to get a 219.4. So the Toyota Supra GT500, viable. It is viable for this lap time challenge. Now comes, oh boy, the Nissan GTR GT500. So after I drove the NSX, this was actually the second car I drove. So the Supra was the last car that I drove, and then there was this monstrosity of a car. I'm gonna call it a monstrosity of a car because this car was a handful for me to drive. On the medium speed corners and even on the lower speed corners, if I was just a little too aggressive getting back on the throttle, the car will start to generate a lot of wheel spin and I'll probably just end up spinning out. And that happens so many times, especially on turn number 1, where I would think, okay, the car is straight enough where I can get back on full throttle power. So then I go ahead and do that, and suddenly I'm facing the wrong way. And yeah, this car was, in my opinion, the hardest to drive of the three. And yeah, just got to be really careful getting back on the throttle because I don't know if the turbo is going to kick in so hard and just try to spin me around. So yeah, this car made me pretty nervous. And it did take me a while to try to get the lap time I wanted with this car, especially right here leading up to the no-name corner. I would think that I'm okay. Even right there, the car stepped out of me right there, and I got really nervous. I got a bit scared. I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna have to restart this run. But luckily, I was able to catch it, and I was able to keep going with this lap. But yeah, I had to really think a lot about trying to be careful getting back on the throttle, just try and make sure that this car remained on its best behavior, and also just trying to be fast enough to meet my required time limits. And yeah, trying to juggle all of that, it wasn't the easiest thing to do. It was still fun at the end, but just the process of getting there did get pretty frustrating at times. But luckily, we are able to somehow manage to just keep it together. So far we're doing good. Little lift off our throttle right there to make sure I don't understeer off of the track. Then brake before the 150 meter board. And here I just have to be really careful getting back on the throttle. Nice and careful getting back on the throttle just like that. And the car is on its best behavior. And luckily, it was able to go under 219.5. Getting a 219.4. So the Nissan GTR is also viable for this lifetime challenge. It's a handful though, but it is viable. So if you want to go down that route, feel free to do so. But it is a bit weird doing this kind of video with just 3 cars, whereas a couple weeks ago I did 33 cars, but I know that's not going to be the case somewhat soon. Something tells me we might have a lap time challenge at Daytona with all Group 3 cars. I just have a small feeling. But if you want to access the in-game replay of these 3 cars, I will link them in the description down below if you want to check them out. And that's pretty much it for me. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you did, feel free to hit the like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. But that is all from me. Take care, everyone. This is Mr. MCA, the world's most okay player, and I'll see you in the next video.